All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is November 14th, 2022, and this is the work session meeting for the Minnetrista City Council. This evening we have with us Brian Grimm, Finance Director. I'm reading here. I should be looking there. Jasper Krugel, our administrator. I'm Lisa Whalen, the mayor. Council members are Pam Mortensen, John Chumperlin, and Ann McGregor. Kathleen Refkin is absent this evening. And then we also have Director of Public Works, Gary Peters, our Ali Paulfus, administrator. Let's see, what is your exact title?
Director of Administration.
Thank you. And then Don Motzko. So we have this evening, we have Ellers here, Todd Hagan, who will be giving us a presentation, and we'll have a discussion on our financing options. And then we'll also be talking about utility billing and a park dedication and tree replacement budget discussion, personnel policy update review, and then the Weeblo Den Pack will 285 will be here for about a few minutes, 10 to 15 minutes before our regular meeting, and we will answer questions that they may have. So we're going to start out. So it's a long agenda, so we're going to try and get that. Good evening, Peter. Thank you for coming. Our newly elect, what would you call it? One of our council elect people. So, Todd, you're up.
All right, thank you. I told Todd he had 20 minutes, so I guess.
Yeah, Todd, you have 15. You have 15 minutes. Okay.
You guys are going to ask me.
And I'm sure you're going to be back anyway. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. And nice to see you folks again. Appreciate it. Thanks for the good weather. Driving over here tonight. I didn't run off the road, but telling Brian I might have. But yeah, it's kind of nasty in the city. So you have to watch out for the bridges and all that stuff. So anyway, I made it, and thanks for the invite, as always. So Brian and I, welcome aboard, Jasper. Great. It's good to have you.
You're a little late, Todd. He's been here like 7 months.
Todd hasn't been here in 2 years, I don't think.
Yeah, I know.
I already said that.
Yeah, I know. I know.
But, yep, so Brian and I kind of get together, right, periodically and try to package up financing, whatever you guys seem to need out there. And it's all preliminary, it's kind of estimates at this point. Brian gives me the projects and sort of how you expect to pay for them. And then depending on how large they are and what kind of source of payment they're coming from, we put together kind of just a bond schedule just to kind of show you the principal and interest and what the market is and all that good stuff. So we've got a couple like pro forma debt service schedules attached to your agenda. One's kind of the projects that Brian has here, Morning View, North Arm, and Mill and Overlay areas for 2023. And then there's another debt service pro forma that sort of covers a couple of other projects, like the 2 new wells you're looking at. And I know the mayor and I at a conference kind of talked about, sort of the benefits to bundling and all that kind of stuff. Should we chip away at this stuff that's in smaller bites, or now the time to kind of put things together and finance some on, as bid numbers that come in and maybe do what we can on some future projects that are sort of maybe estimates at this point, but maybe locking in loading on the interest rate is something to consider as rates continue to go up. Those types of conversations that we all have and kind of wonder how best to kind of finance all these projects that we're looking at. That second pro forma that's in here, we're mindful of just trying to, setting some limits basically too. And we talked about the $10 million bank qualified limitation. It's a calendar year limitation for all issuers. It's a federal sort of limitation, and what that does, if we can stay at or below the $10 million limit in a calendar year, that we benefit from what we call bank qualification. And that just allows, when we send a bond out to bid, it allows banks to bid that are able to benefit from bank qualification. They can deduct, I think it's 80% or so of their interest cost, or their carrying cost on a bond issue. It's not only tax exempt, but they can deduct up to that amount of interest expense. And so that benefits them, and then it benefits you as an issuer, right? Because then your interest rate should come down. So we always like to, if we can, stay at or below that $10 million limit if we can. I know school districts have trouble doing that, and counties, these projects are getting so big. It is what it is, but there is sort of a differential and some cost savings by bank qualification.
And Todd, that's annually, the
It is.
$10
It's
million
calendar
annually.
year.
Yeah,
Yep,
calendar
it's a
year.
Yeah, and you can, even if you have a large project, you can close the bond issue, part of it in, let's say, 2022, and then another in 2023. If you got 20 million or something, you can still benefit that way too. It's a calendar year.
Yeah,
so you can
okay.
kind of hop over that. And I guess this really, kind of difference between the first performer and the second one is, with there's some MSA fund money too that I think the engineer was talking about. That actually sort of we put that in as cash, in the scenarios, and that really freed up even more money, to finance those two wells, earlier than later, in 2023. And it sort of it looked like, right, Brian, it kind of landed in that sweet spot of financing, the water projects and the two new wells. So for Minnetrista,
For the 8.2 million.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And the 10 million finances the whole thing.
The 10 million would add in the two new wells.
Yeah, the 10 million.
The 8 million leaves out the wells. The 8 million was just the basically the Morning View North Arm, the mill and overlay, and then the water main associated with just shy of 8 million, or a little over once you add in the issuance costs and stuff. And then the 10 million scenario took into account when we get to the water, the wells or whatever, and if we're looking to potentially early next year bundle that, or if we're going to sort of put that aside depending on how they sort of come together and what the council wants to do. So that was the two different options basically is the...
And then we could potentially, so then a question, because the roads are going to be we'll know the cost of the roads in February when we open bids, but we won't know the exact cost of the wells because we'll have an estimate. So do you still bond for the full 10 million?
You can bid on an estimate on those. If you feel comfortable.
And then another question. So let's just say we do the 10 million and then the wells come in much less. Can we use some of that money for roads then? Or can we keep it and use it for the treatment plant, which may not be until 24? Or
other water related.
So it would have to be water.
Yeah, and it could be sewer, because I'm envisioning that we pay the water with water revenues, right?
Right.
And I know it's nice to keep water with water and sewer with sewer, but state statute chapter 444 has you have the flexibility to go either way with it too. So
but we can't use it for roads. It would have to be water infrastructure.
It would have to be utilities,
Which is fine because we have quite a bit there. We have the rehabilitation of the... Okay, then another question. So we do that. So we have extra money after we drill the wells, and then we earmark it. Do we have to use it in 23 or can we use it in 24?
Yeah, you can spend, so we're going to be, good question. So we run into arbitrage. It's that fancy French word.
Which of course we don't understand, but go ahead,
But if you're over $5 million, so it's got a $5 million small issuer exception to arbitrage rebate. It's not the end of the world to rebate investment earnings to the federal government, because that means you're kind of earning more than what they want you to, right? So it's not the end of the world, but when we're over $5 million, that we would do a spend down calculation. Our arbitrage team would do that, and we have to meet certain, in order to keep all our investment earnings before they're spent. Right?
Okay.
We need to kind of chip away at those bond proceeds at certain kind of benchmarks as we go, a certain percentage. Within 2 months, within 2 years. So we're trying to hit those. I think they're pretty generous. If we don't, we just pay rebate back to.
And that's only on the amount that we've earned off of the money that we've not spent. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's okay, but it's nice to kind of maybe get with the engineer and kind of look at the spend downs to see if we can meet some of that stuff. It'd be nice to keep, because interest rates are going up with
I know.
investments, right?
I know.
So it'd be nice to
Keep
kind
that
of-
money.
Yeah.
I think we'll be fine because we also have the rehabilitation of the Kings Point Water Tower. We have that $2 million pipe replacement on Morning View.
That one's included in the
Okay.
in the 8 million, the original
Okay.
8, the morning view. So
I think we'll be fine.
Yeah.
But
and
we
some of
wanna
that's
keep it-
qualified if it's just even the preliminary cost or the engineering cost could be applied to. Obviously once you get into the big capital cost, that's going to be where the rubber meets. The majority of the costs are going to be. But I'm just trying to think if we have a little bit. It's just a little different philosophy. We've usually never bonded for extra, but it's sort of different times with rising interest rates and
Right.
stuff. So I guess it's-
Well, that begs the next question. So, the feds have raised interest rates recently again,
Yes.
and there's talk that they might be raising them again in the first quarter. What's your feeling, and when should we be doing these bonds? Should we do them in December? I'm asking.
Oh,
Do you have a crystal ball?
You mean this year yet?
Yeah.
That I think we're kind of maybe done with this year.
Okay.
We run into the holidays and things like that.
Okay.
Markets are closed, and it's kind of sketchy, when to sell, when not to. People are in the holiday spirits in the market too, right?
Okay.
So I think it would have been more of an October, November, December to close in December. So I think we are looking at 2023 for these projects.
So how does that actually work? Is there an agent that is looking for things?
Yeah, so what we do is we're like the engineer of the bond world, right? So we don't buy them, they don't construct it. So we'll package this up and then we'll sell it out into the market because it's a large bond issue. And it's a longer bond issue. I think we've got 20 years here on this one
So
right now.
you kind of go out for an RFP.
So we go out for bids.
For bids, yeah.
It's not, it doesn't have to be an RFP.
No, but I'm saying you
you're
go
right,
out
it's
for
the
bids.
Same concept. These bond issues are general obligation, easily understood out in the market. You guys have a pretty high credit rating, the AA plus. You're right up at the top. It sells well. You get lots of bids when you just send it out to the market. Yeah, if there's a story behind a bond, like if it's like a hospital bond or a broadband bond or something that doesn't have a general obligation behind it, then we do the RFP. We pick an underwriter to work with, and then we just work with those folks to do it. But it generally takes. So I do a pre-sale just so you know the terms and kind of the path we're going to be on. I come to the council. We do a pre-sale report and show you that, and then usually at the next month's meeting, then we sell bonds. So in between that time and then, we package it all up and get like an official statement. It's called. It's like a prospectus on a security to get that ready to go to post, right? So everybody kind of these bidders know what to bid on. So it'd be, let's say, a meeting in October, a bond sale in November, right? And then we close 3 weeks after that, probably in December. So that's why we're kind of a little bit into 2023 now. Yeah.
Well, I think the timeline we'd probably be looking at is first we wanted to see, are we looking at wanting to do more of the 8 million or the 10 million? I think we wanted to get that answer from council. Probably adopt our budget in December, and then from there we'd probably, whether we'd set up the. I guess there's a couple of different ways. You could either wait for the bids on the roads to come in February and then do pre-sale and final sale like in March, April, or I guess depending on if we think there's going to be any savings between doing it in January, February versus March.
See, I'm thinking January.
Okay.
And
That'd be dangerous. We know the rates are going up.
Yeah,
We've
we've even put
go up a lot.
Yeah, we've even put 100 basis points or 1% of cushion in here right now, in anticipation of that.
So the question this evening is when you're going to come back, and I think you're hearing like we should probably think about this maybe even the first meeting in January, which is January 9th. Is that?
Well, it'd be.
Or do we have to wait until the opening of the bids?
You're going to assess a little bit on some of these or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So that project, we need, I think, a bid to come in on. When are the bids coming in on that project?
February.
End of February.
Yeah, I mean, for the bid, if the bids are coming in pretty soon, sooner rather than later, like the 2 wells, it'd be nice to wait a little bit for some of those bids to come in, so at least we've got most of this kind of nailed down. I don't know what your thoughts are.
No, I mean, I guess.
I'm just wondering in terms of interest rates. I think like
Yeah.
Ann, I'm a little bit jittery because I know they're going to go up at least another 0.75%.
But you don't know what the bids are going to come in, what they're going to look like.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think I've heard that they might stop after this next December, or pause at least. So we're not going to beat the next
Yeah.
rate increase
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. You typically.
Okay.
You don't think so?
I'm just wondering about the risk.
Okay.
I'd say the risk of missing the mark maybe on the project cost may.
Outweigh
be
the,
worse.
okay. All right.
And then, but the other ones like the water projects.
Right.
It sounds like you've got a use for if we're going a little bit over, if we're a little bit under, right? We've got some
Right.
cushion both ways. I think it feels like for your city that might be an option there. Just go off of estimates on some of those future,
on the water
on the
infrastructure.
water part.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just my thought. I've been doing this a while, and I just hate to miss the mark on the project. I thought if the bids are going to come in like the next month,
Right.
and then we're going to.
Well,
Okay.
I'd almost hate if the road bids, and I'm not are hoping this happens, but if we're estimating 8 and they come, in at 9 or
Yeah.
something, then we almost have something to look at. I'm hoping it's estimated at 8 and they come in at 7.
Yeah.
Then again, you'd adjust your bond issuance potentially or whatever. So
Yeah,
And
we do. Yeah.
And so the time frame. So let's do some crystal ball.
Yeah.
Let's say we go into a recession mid 2023.
Okay.
Okay. How fast will those rates probably drop? You have no idea. I guess you can't quote that anyway. You can't quote it.
Well, that was my
Here's
question.
your question.
That's a good question. And I was saying, okay, when are these callable? And when can we refinance? And so, and I
There's
know,
always that.
That's
right?
exactly
and we talked about this just a little bit ago. I came a little early and asked that question. So when can we call them? And can they be open to call anytime? And is that not so good?
Well, you I think were the only city that did that, and that was with Woodland Cove, right?
That was for the Kings Point Road.
Kings
Yeah.
Point Road.
Yes. Right.
And that the market kind of went, huh? Todd, I got a few phone calls. Is that a mistake?
Oh.
Are you okay? We'll bid, and that's great.
But
And
it
we
was
had a great
higher.
reason for that. Our reason was huge, right?
Yes.
Because lots get sold, or
Yeah.
assessments get prepaid, and we're off to the races. So there was a huge reason to do that. And I think we paid. I know we refinanced them already, so we
Yeah.
might have paid, and they were super low interest rates at the time.
Yeah.
We probably did both of them. They're a little higher the first time because we refied them the second time, right? And we might have paid. I'm just thinking, was it 75 basis points more for the call anytime?
Okay.
It might have been only 25 basis points the second time, but we do pay for it. So,
Okay.
So the sweet spot on the call date in the market is 10 years, no penalty. 9, probably no penalty either. 8, we do a lot of 8s here and we push it, and I think we're okay with 8. I feel comfortable with 8. But anything less than that, we have to call the market and
Okay.
make sure they're okay, because we don't want to lose bidders either, right? We want more. We usually get 8 or so
Yeah, I was gonna
bids
say, we've
here,
had-
and we might, all of a sudden, if we push it too much, we get 2, and they're higher, right? Because
Right.
we're going to pay for it a little bit. But if we have a good reason, like we did before at Kings Point, that's fine. But if we're just going to do it, we're probably going to pay for it. Flexibility is great, but
Okay.
so the market needs a little something, a little bit of a reassurance.
Well, when you
that they're
come-
holding on to the bond for a while. You know?
So in this day and age, that's a long time.
It is, and that's kind of where the market's been now. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, hence the gray beard. But so the other school of thought is as rates get higher and they kind of maybe are climbing in the future, that call date might not make as big a difference as it used to, because they might want the city to call the lower interest rate bonds if they can go buy a higher interest rate bond. So that's why we need to make sure we check with the market. We might be able to push it down to 5 or 4 or something. But we won't know that until we get closer to, the bond sale.
Okay.
Because we don't want to. And if you guys have a threshold at that point where you're okay with 25 basis points more for a shorter call date, then that's what we would follow then to make sure that
Yeah.
it's okay. But we would ask the industry and just make sure it's okay. But remember, I mean, you're the ones calling the bonds, so it's the bondholders going, is this the best rate I can get for a few years? And if Minnetrista calls them and rates go down, you know, or if I think rates are going to go up, I'd gladly have them calling my bond because I can go buy a.
But we wouldn't call the bond, or could they call it?
You would be the one. Who
We would be the
receive
one
it.
calling it. So if the rates go up, well, we wouldn't be calling it.
Right.
So, okay.
Right.
Well, we'll look at that. I think it's something to look at.
Yeah, but that is the industry standard out there. Is
So when you come back, then I'm assuming then you'll be back in February sometime.
yeah, is that where the bulk of the bids are going to come in on the street?
Yeah,
So
we'll
let's,
time it with you.
I don't know what the timing is, but let's just say you come back in February.
Yeah.
When you come back, can you tell us dollar-wise what difference it would make if we did a, shorter term call rate? You know what I'm saying?
You would be closer to that than, yep, and I can give
Okay.
you a little bit more indicator on that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Yep. And then, and it sounds like we're going to be under either way under that $10 million bank qualified threshold anyway, so we're good there.
Okay.
Because that's a few basis points too. I did send a memo to Brian, and if you're looking at, like a 20-year bond, that could, 20 years plus on a bond. It varies though. It goes from a 15 base penalty, for non-bank qualified, you pay 15 basis points more for year 1 to 5, 20 basis points in year 6 to 10.
Oh, okay.
15 years, 25 basis points, and 16 to 19, 30 basis points more. So it, rises as, so being under that 10 million is a big deal.
Yeah, and I think we will be.
It sounds like you will be.
We'll
Yeah,
make it.
yeah,
I
so
think
you're
we'll
good
just
there.
have to make it work because I don't think we want to pay those basis points.
Yeah, and then the arbitrage is that's good too to ride the
Yeah.
wave on the investment income on
Yeah.
the way up too.
Yeah.
That's another good thing to think about. Kind of why you maybe want to sort of do the water projects earlier rather than later, because
Okay.
you can kind of reap that benefit too. Lock on the bonds and float on the
Interest
investment
rate.
earnings.
Okay.
Right? So. Yep.
We'll have for the bid openings. I just pulled up an email, so we'll have one. We have 3 bid openings in February. Of one on February 1st, one on February 8th, and one on February 22nd. The last one would be considered for award on March 6th. So
So March 6th actually is when we'd probably be looking at the
We'd
bonds.
start
Start.
the bond process. I mean, that is getting out there. Whatever you guys think. Yeah.
Well, let's play it by ear, but we
But-
might want to bring this back to second meeting and
we'll know on February 8th the majority of the bond, which is the big project, will be bid out on February. We'll have it open on February 8th. That's the $4.3 million or street
You
facility.
might feel comfortable.
Yep.
Yeah, at that point. And then remember, though, it takes a few months to get the bond going. So we can adjust the bond. We even adjusted the morning of the bond sale, right? I'm going to give Brian a call and say, here's how the bids came in. And we have flexibility language in that offering document to move it around. I would say 2 weeks prior to that bond sale, we can make some major adjustments. So by that time, you'll have maybe maybe the second one in or something. You'll be closer. So we can make, I guess my point is we can make adjustments as, we can have them both kind of going on the same. path and make
okay.
adjustments
So
on the speed.
you'll want to come back that first meeting or second meeting in February?
In
What is it?
February.
First meeting? When you said February 8th? I don't know what our first meeting is.
I think it's the
The 7th?
We're gonna lock you in already, John. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
And
I
then-
just want to make sure that we stay on track here.
Yeah,
So.
and then give me enough time to
6th.
get that
Okay.
bid
Sort of.
in the numbers, right? So I can come back with a report or
Sure,
whatever
give
if
it.
you wanted to move forward for that next meeting in February.
So our first meeting is February 6th. Then the most of the bids are going to be opened on the 8th.
Okay,
So that would,
20th.
and then the 22nd you said is the second
But,
opening.
yeah, the next meeting is the 20th. So we'd potentially know a lot by the 20th by that meeting.
Yep. I can make my adjustments that week prior and come back with a
that
report. If you guys want want to move forward on estimates from there on.
Okay.
The engineers hitting a mark, right?
Oh, 21st.
Yeah, like no, you'd be the 20th or 21st. That might be.
It'd be the
President's
21st
Day.
because
Yeah,
of President's Day.
So it'd be that. Then our meeting moves to the Tuesday. Then is how we do it, Todd.
Yeah, and then the March meeting, that'd be your second meeting in March. We could do a bond sale, too,
Yeah,
right?
March 6th or whatever.
And then we would
Or
close
The 20th.
Yeah.
in April, like the second week in April or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we could just ride the wave like that and just see what happens, right? And,
I'm looking to Ann because you guys won't be here. So does that sound like a?
yeah.
I mean, if there's any way to
Sorry.
do it quicker, I think there's an appetite to try to do it quicker, but
Right.
you've identified the risk.
I'm just saying from what I'm hearing. I mean, it's all.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, we could do it a little sooner, and we could have that, that February 8th when you get that bid, we can start
Adjusting.
making adjustments, and we could sell.
A couple weeks earlier or something. But yeah, we're really
We could sell
looking
a
at.
couple weeks earlier. We're only talking a couple weeks
Yeah,
earlier.
we're looking at probably March and then yeah.
But we can also keep an eye on the feds and see what
Yes.
they're going to be doing. And if there's some rumblings that they're going to raise it again, let's say, and we think it's going to be coming in February, we might want to do it sooner, do the February 6th meeting versus the February 21st meeting. So keep an eye on that. We're going to count on you, Todd.
Yes, and so we've got this in our mind here that
Okay.
if we push it up to that earlier February, we're going to only be able to probably adjust for that first bid that comes in. If we go a couple weeks down, we'll be able to adjust maybe for the second bid coming in. So that's kind of how
Trade-offs or whatever.
how kind of you feel about it.
Yeah, so I just did a quick little Google search of when the Fed will be meeting in 2023, and they'll be meeting on February 1st and then March 22nd. So likely we won't be able to meet before the February 1st, so we're probably going to, but March 22nd, we might be able to
Yeah,
get it in
so then
before
maybe
that.
that February 21st would be fine.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to raise it, they're going to probably raise it on the 1st. Okay. All right.
All right.
I think
Any other
that's.
questions at all?
That's what you're trying to do.
I thought I just kind of cut loose and just kind of cut to the chase.
And when you come back in February, we'll go over this again. We will have 2 new council members. So one of them is right there tonight, but the other one isn't here yet. So I'm sure there'll be questions and things like that. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for serving.
Yeah.
Thank
See
you.
guys.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your help. Along.
Yeah. And let me know if you want to move it up a little sooner. So.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to go on to park dedication and tree replacement budget discussion.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry. Utility billing. I missed that one. Sorry. All right. Important one. All right.
Yeah. If I may, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
members of council, I'll get started on this. Brian and I will kind of tag team this. I think with the driver for this is really we have the Q3 data from our Q3 utility billing and some things that you maybe noticed where there were a lot of interactions with the public regarding the amount of water and the billing and all of that. And we did see a significant increase in our Q3 numbers between 2021 and 2022. So we thought we should talk about the rates that we had talked about in September, because in September, as a reminder, we talked about it, and the utility rate study essentially said we should do a 14% increase in 2023. And we thought, well, we have some additional sales here. Is this something that we should look at and maybe kind of reevaluate at that time? I think in the future, we'll probably time maybe the budget conversations with the Q3 because it's our biggest use month.
Yeah, that's
so,
a good idea.
And I think we only missed it by like maybe a week or something like that. But we didn't really. There was significant usage. So I'll go over just some stats that kind of rose to the level of kind of raising our eyebrows a little bit. Water usage was up 51% compared to 2021 in Q3. But you have to keep in mind that in 2021 there was an irrigation ban for a period of time during Q3 as well. Of the 1,936 residential users, so that doesn't include the HOAs, 36% of those users were above or at that 65,000 gallons or more tier. So 36% of the users hit that top tier. The highest single residential user was 502,000 gallons, that's a lot.
It's unbelievable.
Well, did you tell the council of what you guys did?
Yeah, so Gary and I and Mike, we went out to this individual's house and kind of talked him through and kind of did some quick calculations. I think he had his irrigation person on the phone, and there's 26 zones, and I think there are 27 zones irrigating for 30 minutes a zone. It ends up being every irrigation cycle was 9,000 gallons.
Actually, it's 13,500.
13,500. So, and you're irrigating 15 times a month. We did the math; it all worked out to basically what he was billed. So he was happy we figured it out, and I think he was a little upset with his irrigation person. So, but it was good. I mean, we had a lot of phone calls, and it's the majority of them. I don't know, 95+% are related to irrigation and overwatering, and having your irrigation controller set up so that you're overwatering from what you need. And I think a lot of times what happens is, when the house is built, these new houses, the contractor will program it for when you got new sod, and they just leave it that way for forever, and they end up using a lot of water. So I think that's what it kind of comes down to is the use. I mean, the usage is related to irrigation. I think we know that. So in turn, water billing revenue was up around 75% compared to Q3 of 2021. So we had, people use the water, they have to pay for it. And that's kind of the driver, and we're trying to change behaviors. And I feel that was the main reason why some of the tiers and the rates were set up the way they were earlier in the year, was because we want people to use less water. And I think every time, you guys, we talk to residents, I mean, that's really what we need, right? Because the peaking factor, which is the next kind of bullet point that we have, we're estimating it for 2022 because we're obviously not done with 2022 yet, but likely that'll increase from what it was last year at like 3.49 to roughly 4. So it's trending upward, which we're going to have some conversations with the Minnesota DNR about permitting potential wells. And they're going to look at this peaking factor, and that'll be a conversation, right? And we don't know exactly how that'll work out as far as what they want, but we know that they want us to be around 2.6, which is a lot lower than we are right now. So, but looking, that's another discussion. But looking at the water rates, what we've done is kind of come up with maybe some alternatives that we can have a conversation about. Obviously, the 14% is what we would have came with to City Council on December 5th. That was the direction given at that time. But with this new data, increased revenue, and we're hoping that potential behaviors change and less water is used next year. But we just don't know until that actually happens. Right. So, but what we've done is prepared a couple alternatives. So alternative 1 in your packet has basically a tier adjustment. So the middle tier goes up from 65 to 75,000, and then the third tier is 75 and above, and then we have a 4% increase, which is, from what I understand, pretty much what we've done doing, year to year is a 4% increase. For the commercial water, that would just be a 4% increase on the current rates, and same with the school. And then alternative 2 has the addition of a tier from 65,000 to 95,000, and the price per 1,000 gallons is just split the difference between the top tier and the second tier, and then add a 4% increase onto that as well from 2022 to 2023. Water, commercial water, schools, that would just be a 4% increase on 2022 rate. So. Those are kind of what we end up on is what, we're kind of at the, we do have some time, but what we're hoping is that we get some direction from council on what is expected to be included in the packet on December 5th. So Kathleen, or Councilmember Refkin, is unable to be here tonight. She prepared just some talking points, which seem familiar with other conversations that we've had about the subject. But we can kind of go through those. I know she's the lone council member that is on the water system. We can talk about that. But yeah, ideally, we'd like direction from the group as far as what you expect in the packet on the 5th for water rates. So
Okay.
I'll entertain any questions if anybody has, and Brian can obviously add some of the expertise with the utility billing piece.
So one of the things I was thinking, first we should talk about residential. And then I was thinking maybe we put the commercial and school discussion in the January work session.
Why?
Well, because Kathleen isn't here. And she had some fairly significant changes she wanted to make.
Okay, but aren't we, I thought the December 5th package is when we're supposed to actually rule on it.
We can, but we can always make changes. But it's up to you. But if you want to, we can have that discussion now. I just was thinking, but
Okay.
Um,
I have some,
yeah.
I want to repeat some of the burning questions that I asked Jasper this afternoon. And he can repeat the exact same answers he gave me. Water is water. Comes from the same source, the same treatment, the same delivery. Why does commercial and why did one school, have a different rate in the first place?
Generally,
I can chime in.
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason that this was done, I guess to give history, we used to have, well, when I first got here, we didn't have any tiers. It was pretty much, and I think the DNR came in and said, you got to have some tiers, or we're not going to grant wells or whatever. So then we did some tiers that were basically the council at the time, I think, had directed sort of what are breaks that, we knew the school used in some quarters, over 1 million gallons. So I think the philosophy at the time was to just have most at the lower tiers and just have a little bit go into the higher. So I think it was whether it was to not be too, have what happened the past, 45 days with the water residential, to not have, too much of a pushback, and that was the direction at the time, was basically look at where the natural breaks are for third quarter and set the tiers accordingly. So that's why the schools inherently use more water, obviously. So that's why the amounts for schools and commercial were set at those higher amounts. Is because here's what a normal residential use could be. Here's our normal commercial use based on history, and same thing for schools. And we ultimately set the tiers accordingly. Is how it was done.
So I guess, long story short, council direction, right? They decide the rates,
Okay.
and that's just what they were set at.
Let me make a fiery comment right now, because the first time I read through this, it really looks to me like we're coming down on the residents. I mean, this looks bad, and unless there's a lot more information that's provided as to how many gallons commercial actually uses, and you did give me some of that this afternoon. But we somehow need that in something public. I mean, when you read this and you see the higher rates, and yet you see all these thousands of gallons for commercial and school, you immediately think that we, the council, are coming down on the resident. And I think that has to be explained. So, go ahead.
well, one of the things too you could look at is just because they're using more water, and once you use, there's kind of a economics and scale. So we don't need more people to do 1 million gallons versus 500,000 gallons. It's more water, though.
Right.
So, it's filtering through the system, so it's costing more for that.
Right.
But we're not doubling or tripling or quadrupling the infrastructure need, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. So take that. Okay, so we're going down the right path as far as my understanding. Does it impact that peak level that the DNR has calculated?
It might, and that's why I think it's a really good idea that the school is going to get off of the irrigation part.
Yeah, I don't think so I think, Brian, you maybe know, how many gallons did we use in Q3? Or maybe Gary does. It was like 118 million?
Yeah.
118 million. So let's say the school uses 1 million of that. So they're, of that peaking factor, there may be 1% or less of that.
Okay. I think that's important information.
Sure.
Because without that information, it doesn't look very good.
And that's not to say we can't raise the rates for the school and or commercial. We need to look at that. The only thing is, I would be hesitant to do too big of a jump in one year because, as you know, school districts have already set their budgets,
Right.
and now if we raise the rates significantly, now they're going to kind of be behind the 8 ball too.
No, and I totally understand that. I mean, no one, corporation, government, nobody wants their budget to be disrupted once it's set in stone.
Right.
So I get that.
Commercial, obviously, they have more flexibility. But the other thing is, we could also raise the rate for the school in third quarter, or we could raise the rates now, but not so significantly, but let them know that after the third quarter of 23, they're going to go up, so find another source. That might be one way of doing it.
Okay.
I mean, another option. Because we don't really want them to be using all of our million gallons of our treated water for their irrigation.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of a waste too.
Yeah, how soon will we know if they can use that well for irrigation?
Gary, do you know?
It all depends on how fast they can get somebody in there to, to look at it. I mean, it's there. If the casing's good, they can put a pump down in, at any time and get it operating, but it's going to be the piping system to get it out to where they need to tie into their own systems. That'll probably take them a while to, kind of figure out the routing of that. And, getting that just figured out will probably take them a while because of the size of that campus. So.
The other thing, though, with that is if we say for 23, these are what your rates are, and they go up, but not significantly. But then after that, they go up after their irrigation. So they would then have a year plus. You know what I'm saying? Plus, then they could also factor in for 24 into their budget if the irrigation doesn't work out. That's just one thought.
Do you know if they factored that into their budget to do that for 2023, map that all out?
I think so, but we could check.
I know they're working on it. So that they've contacted us. I think we put them in contact with the well driller. So they're getting some information. I know they're examining the well. I don't know as far as the irrigation infrastructure, the pipes around campus, where they're at with that. But I know that's a priority. I know that the superintendent has indicated that if they can get this to work, they're going to definitely do it. It'll have a pretty short ROI for them if they can get it going.
And it may only be for their main campus area because they have across the street too. Their practice fields are
Right.
also irrigated, but I have no idea. I don't think that's a separate system, so I don't know if they have plans to go across there. So it just may be that area by the high school and those fields. So we still may have some of them on our system.
Do you know, so how much, we don't know exactly how much they use for irrigation this summer.
Not right offhand. We could look. We could get that
Yeah.
pretty, easily.
I'm sure they've done their homework too and decided that to get this well up and running and to do the tie-in of their irrigation system is going to cost them less in the long run than it is to keep paying for our expensive water.
Yeah, and then that ROI would shrink if we adjust rates upward.
Right. However, keep in mind, the Woodland Cove HOA used over 1 million gallons too. In fact, I think several of them used 5 million. I mean, they used a ton of.
Yeah,
So then
total
you'd
was over
also
5 million gallons for the quarter.
Yeah.
For all their open space and their, because they do a community, how do you want to phrase that? A lot of their areas are watered jointly through their systems, so that's how all their stuff works. They're not on separate home systems. They do an entire neighborhood on one system. So
Have we talked to them?
Well, we need to, but what I'm saying too is if you're going to target the heavy commercial and school users, be careful because the
Because Woodland Cove
HOA
uses-
is
yeah,
also
I
a
get
big heavy user. So that's almost, yeah. So
Is
that's
that-
another
is that-
discussion.
Is that under the commercial on this?
No.
No, it's under the residential.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because it makes it very confusing. Because what we have here, and that I asked Jasper this afternoon. You have 0 to 25 gallons, which it makes it look from the chart that that's where you want a family to be. You want them to be under 25,000 gallons. But I don't think these families know what they use. Right? Or not right?
No, correct.
Okay. So then we're charging the much higher amount on the 25,000 to 65,000 because we want to change behavior. But the reality of it is, I think Jasper told me this afternoon, that's where the majority of people are. So what I need to know is what's an average family supposed to be using? And do we seem to sincerely believe the entire thing is coming from irrigation? Is that true?
The majority, yeah, of the usage in the summer irrigation.
Okay.
So, if I may, I think the idea is that a household should be able to be at 65,000 or less by
With
properly-
irrigation.
With irrigation, yeah. If you don't have irrigation, you should be at that 25,000.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it all depends on what you use. I mean, it's if you have a family of 5 or 6. Without irrigation, you might be using 8,000 to 10,000 gallons a month. Let's just say, which is 30,000 a quarter. If you have a family of 3, 4, it should be less than that. So it all depends on habits and things like that. But in general, I think a normal single family home should be able to be at 65 or less, and I think that's why the tier was set up in that manner to kind of incentivize to stay in that. That was a council conversation that I wasn't part of. But that makes sense, right? 65,000 I think is reasonable, and if you go above that,
I think 65,000 is even including moderate irrigation.
Yeah.
That includes irrigation.
Yeah, I was going to say, because
And I thought that was the logic we used in increasing it, because we did a study and said if we boosted it by 15,000 to get it to 65,000, we would encapsulate more residents and keep them out of that third tier, because that's then why we jumped the third tier as much as we did, because we felt we would keep majority of the residents out of it. Obviously, that doesn't work in the summer. At least it didn't this summer.
Right.
So we're saying then if we looked at first quarter, majority would be under 25,000.
Oh yeah,
January,
that's
February,
at
March.
15,
Because
20,000.
there's no irrigation.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's what I wanted to
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of how you can tell that it's irrigation, right? You're not using that
Right.
during normal circumstances, during non-irrigation times.
And that's how the peaking factor is calculated.
Yes,
too.
using that number.
So
Yeah.
4 times the amount you use in the winter.
Yeah, almost a good example is the winter usage for people or a lot of people is probably 20,000, and is the summer third quarter they're getting up to 80,000. That's that peaking factor of 4. But
So the HOAs, it's kind of an intriguing thing to me. The HOAs are watering their open spaces, and it's significant. How do they get charged for what just the HOAs are using? For what?
So they have an account, and there's several. If you look at the sheet, there's several accounts for HOAs, and there's different HOAs too. But Woodland Cove HOAs are using a significant amount, and so they have accounts, and those are sent to the management company, and then the management company pays them. Well, the way they have the money to pay is everybody in the development pays their HOA fees, and that's part of their HOA fees.
So they're all metered, I guess. All
Yeah.
those connections are metered, and we know what they're using.
Right.
And then we bill the HOA versus the resident.
So
I
their
mean,
billing went up significantly.
yeah,
the
they
HOAs.
Yeah.
So I would think that would be a huge place to target getting them to their open spaces.
Yeah, but I mean, yes and no. But think about it this way. Even if their bills increased by 50%, okay, and it's spread out over 400 homes, you're only going to see about, you know what I'm saying? There's so many homes that are paying into the HOA fees that each home only would see a $5 increase to their HOA. So I'm just using this figuratively. So the management company might not care so much. So I think we need to talk to the management companies, or we need to change, if we're going to change the commercial rates and not address the HOA rate, that might not be quite fair either.
And Woodland Cove is looking at, their HOA is looking at a well to fill their ponds because they're on the pond reuse system. So right now, the way it works is when the ponds get down to a certain level, the city takes over and we actually feed into the ponds with our water through our system to help refill that. And we figured out it's 82 gallons a minute goes in, roughly $1,300 a day is what we charge them for 24 hours.
Wow.
And they wanted it on. And I think we ran it, 14, 15 days at that kind of money. It's great revenue for us. I mean, but, for them, that's a lot of dollars that they're putting out. They have 13 different meters out there. So they have 13 different points of feed from our system. And I think 3 of them right now are on the reuse system. So we have quite a few. But all the HOAs, Turtle Creek has one. Hunter's Crest, I believe, have 3, or maybe I think they have 3 or 4 different points.
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to think. Orchard Cove, Red Oak, they all have them. So,
but it's not only reuse; it's also just.
but it's those are just straight off our system.
Right. Right.
And we only open those up when we can safely do that without jeopardizing the other, So we're only filling those after Gary and Mike look at our SCADA system and our power levels and make sure that we're okay. Otherwise, we tell them no.
Yeah, no, we tell them no, but most of them are just straight off the system, which is there is no reuse. So they're just using our water straight out. So me, it's kind of weird that they're on that, but they're paying. The HOAs are paying it.
Yeah.
We never had any problem with any of them complaining about the bill. So,
Well, the other thing too is not only the cost, but the peaking factor at 4.02. The DNR would like us to be around 2.6. That would address that number greatly, I would imagine, that if they cut back.
Yeah, so we're kind of pushing the HOAs to install wells. I think we've kind of walked them through.
But that doesn't necessarily. Yes, that would help us out, but quite frankly, it doesn't help out the resource because they're still pumping all this water.
That's true.
You know
It
what I'm
is.
saying? So it's like, okay, but don't people realize? I know you had a conversation today with a resident that's like, well, if we want to water that much, then we should be able to water that much. But don't people realize, and I think we have to educate people, that it's a finite resource, people. We can't just keep pumping and pumping because it's going to go away if we do that.
No, I don't think anybody knows that. I didn't know that until, this year.
Okay.
I didn't know it at all.
So I think people just have it in their minds that this is something that'll just keep going and going and going. But no, if we're depleting our aquifers faster than they're being recharged, they're going to go away, and sooner than later. So, and when you think about the drought that we had last year, the drought that we have this year, think about the recharging is going to be significantly slower and less in future years. It's only going to get worse. So we really have to think about this, and you're right, we have to educate better, but just for them getting off our system, it might help us out, but it's not going to ultimately help out the natural resource that we're depleting.
Definitely, and Lake Minnetonka has their own conservation district, and if there's a situation like White Bear Lake has, they'll stop all the pumping of the wells,
Right.
So, and it's all kind of tied together. The wells that we pump out of are generally partitioned from the upper levels,
Right.
But that upper level that is just directly tied into Lake Minnetonka and all the other lakes around us. So once those start dropping, and because they could, right, multiple years of drought, we could run into a situation where they start regulating those, and then they don't have access to their wells, and then they're back looking at us. So it is. So yeah, I think we can always do more and do better educating wise, and I think we've done a really good job since I've been, even before I got here, right, in trying to educate, but it's really, really hard.
So we need to do more education, but I think so. I invited about 5 or 6 people in to talk to them, and most of them declined or didn't even have the courtesy to respond to my invitation. So we ended up with a very tiny group, just one individual came in. But one of the things she was saying is the information that we sent out was too much words and too much, and we need to do more graphics and very short and very easy, quick things that people can look at and see. So these big things that we sent out, I think was just too wordy. So we can work on that. Then we also talked about doing door knockers, hangers, because those are things that people might actually, oh, there's something on my door. And again, very visual, very quick to see and see what it's all about. Obviously, it's not our fault that they don't take the time to read the information that we send them. And you can only do so much, but maybe we can do a little bit better next time around. So that might be one thing, but we can talk about that again.
Yeah, and we can dive more into, how we, want to do an education campaign. I guess tonight what we're looking for is
Just for the rates.
If we want to start at residential and kind of get that dialed in, and then maybe jump to the commercial and schools and see what we want to do there. We threw out some alternatives. It could be anything in between that, or what you think.
So what do you actually want us to do tonight?
We would like to know what you would like to see in the packet on the 5th
Okay.
for consideration of adoption.
All right.
So let me ask, let's do this one thing at a time. All right. So there's a 14% that we said, yes, we do, but now staff is saying, well, we don't have to do that next year. Do we want to look at maybe a 4% increase? Let's just do that first.
I would say yes.
I would say yes.
Okay, so 4% increase. So now,
Let me qualify, I didn't say yes.
oh, okay.
Is 4, even with the increase in revenue, is 4 put us behind the 8 ball potentially, then next year we have to come with 14?
Yeah.
Should it be something between 14 and 4?
And I mentioned that in the memo, is that we could do a 4% next year in 2023, but we're going to have to look at the data, look at our revenue, plug it into the spreadsheet that we use for the utility rate, and see where we come out at, right? Based on the projects, we get bid numbers in. Those numbers can change, but I would say expect a 10 to 14 in 2024, kind of like what we said. So we're kind of just postponing it a little bit.
It down.
We could. I mean, you could have a higher percentage increase in 2023, and then potentially lower in the future. That's a possibility too. It's what
The higher rates wouldn't go into effect until 25. I mean, like, for instance, in 23, let's just say you do 4%.
You're talking because of the bonding, the financing?
Right. So then, because our payments wouldn't be due until 25. So what I'm saying is, you could do a 4 or 6. Let's just say 4 to 6 in 23. Then in 24, you could maybe do a 6 or 8. Okay, and then in 25, then you're going to be looking at maybe a 10 or maybe a 10.
I think you're referencing if a water treatment plant comes online in 24, 25, which I think some of this is even unknown as far as how quick we need that, or how quick that AE2S will weigh in on that.
Yeah.
So is that another $2 million?
Oh, the water treatment plant will be
Another 10.
Yeah, that'll be a 10 spot. Yeah.
The wells are $2 million.
Or 12.
The 2 wells would be $2 million.
Yeah. 1 and 2 or 1.5 or something. Yeah.
So we're kind of in this influx. We don't really know how the residents will react to the rates, right? They obviously, it didn't affect them much at all in 2022. 2023, we had a lot of interactions, 300 plus likely phone calls. We had 300 plus people in that 65,000 or higher tier. Hopefully our conversations will maybe, educate and have them look at their irrigation controller, and then hopefully 2023 we see a reduction, right? And they're not using as much water. We don't know though, that's the unknown. So if we come in at 10%, and they, if we don't need that much, we would just have a smaller increase in the future. So it's really what council feels comfortable with. I think with the amount of pushback that we've gotten and feedback that we've gotten from the public, going with a 14%, we might get just as much, feedback. But at the end of the day, this isn't we're not making money in this enterprise fund. It's money that we need to do the improvements that we need. So
Pay me now or pay me later.
exactly.
Okay.
So John, what are your thoughts?
I guess I'd like something higher. I feel comfortable with something higher than 4. I mean, inflation has hit everything. So,
Right.
I mean, people can relate, well, my eggs now are costing me 30% more, so my water is only 10% more. I always try to justify the numbers. Is there a relationship? I think something more than 4. Doesn't have to be 14 or 10, but maybe 6.
What about 6? I think we could live with 6.
Oh yeah, we definitely can live with 6.
All right.
We can even live with 8. It's just that 14 is so high.
Right.
But again, back to what does it actually do to us?
Well, we don't exactly know. It all depends on the usage in Q3. Everything's so centered on Q3 for 2023 that we don't know, right?
Yeah.
If behaviors change and usage goes down, we obviously won't bill as much as
Or
we
it
did.
rains.
Or it rains,
Yeah,
correct. Yeah, that's another factor. So we don't really know. We do our best guess, and based on the trends that we saw over, I don't know what you use, like 3 or 5 years of usage, we needed 14%. If that trend goes up,
If we did the infrastructure, the wells, and the treatment plant in 2023.
Yeah, I think that was based on
That was based on
Yeah,
that.
so
So
now
what
we know
I'm
it's a
saying
little
is if we
further
did 6% for 23, but the wells and the treatment plant aren't going to be until 24, then in next year at this time, we're probably going to be looking at a 8% or maybe 10, and then
The nice thing is we'll have a second
Second.
set of data points
Right.
for Q3 next year at this
Right.
time too, because it was just such a. Obviously, we'll see if we've modified anybody's behavior, if the usage is going to stay up at
right.
where it is.
Okay, I thought when we did this that we said we were going to need 14% for 4 years straight, and then we were going to be able to lower it. So now we're talking about taking way lower than 14,
Right.
but we don't ever want to have to give them 20.
But I think that was before the revenue from third quarter. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
yeah, there's a
Okay, so that's the
50%
difference.
increase in
Yeah.
revenue in Q3
Yeah.
above
Okay.
what we
Yeah.
historically had.
We
So that's
budget-
another data
That's the
point.
difference. Okay.
We're going to be we budget about $1 million for utility water revenue, and we're going to be pushing north of 1.3. Plus, so it's $1 million for water utility fees, just based on third quarter being such a boon of revenue. But
So I think 6 is a safe place, right? I don't think we're going to be. I think even 4, but 6 would be safe, right? Because it might tamp down future increases a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
Which
So now then the question is, okay, so we're going to do 6. So then the question is, so another question, on the residential rates, do we want to raise that second tier to the 75,000?
Does it make a big difference?
I'd
Does
say
it?
no. I mean, if people are actually going to go online and look at it and then say, oh, gee, I can run another 10,000 gallons through here. I mean, I don't think they think that way,
No.
but I think it makes, again, we're talking about trying to be
Trying to force people to be
We're trying to
conservative,
preserve
yeah.
this thing that we have, the water. And I think just raising that second tier up just makes it look like, oh, you can water some more. I'd be against changing the gallonage and the tiers. And I'd be against the fourth tier, allocating. I think we stay with the 3 tiers, stay with our current 65, et cetera, and just do the increase percentage.
Okay, that's kind of what Kathleen was saying. I would agree to increase the second tier to 75,000. However, I would prefer not to at this time and see if usage goes down in 2023. So again, if we did a good campaign and kind of said to people, hey, you should be able to generously water your lawns and still be within that 65,000. So we'll have to talk about an educational campaign too. Okay, then
So that's alt 1?
that would be
it's kind of it's a modified altogether. It'd be a 6% increase for residential, but keeping the tiers the same.
Right,
So it's-
right.
It would be basically this 2023, but instead of going up 14%, it would
Right.
go up 6%.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
But the other things would all be the same. for all
Okay,
one.
well, then the question is, do we,
Except it wouldn't be 75, it'd be 65.
Okay.
Yeah.
so then do we want to change anything for the, let's talk about commercial first. Do we want to change anything on the commercial tiers? So here it's 0 to 80,000 gallons. It's actually less than, yeah, I'm not sure why commercial should pay less than residential.
There you go.
So maybe they should be the same rate.
I'll go with
And-
the same rate.
Yes.
I
Okay.
agree with that.
And
Plus, we are getting more commercial now. Now is the time to do that.
right, right. Now, so then another question is, there's a 0 to 80,000 gallons and then 80,001 to 150,000. Do we want to change any of those numbers?
Jasper had numbers this afternoon. You threw it through. to me.
Well, I think it's a good. I would say if you change the rates, and I don't know what the percentage increase would be for commercial, I'd maybe keep the tiers the same for now.
Okay.
In commercial, I think the idea would be, and this is obviously up to city council, would be maybe in 2024, if the school gets on an irrigation system off our system, then maybe the school tiers could go away and the school could hop into the commercial rates. But I think changing the tiers might be. I mean, I don't know. We only have a handful of commercial users
Yeah.
anyway.
Okay. It's
Okay.
a real small
So
piece of the
commercial
pie.
would be 0 to 80,000 at 513 or whatever
Plus the-
whatever the 6% increase is.
Yeah.
It would be basically the same as residential,
They'd get a 7-8% increase or 8-9, whatever they by equalizing the tiers.
equalizing the tiers. Okay,
That'd be a big jump in tier 3.
It would be.
it would
Yeah.
be.
Oh yeah. Tier 3. Yeah, tier.
So how much notice do they need?
Well, do you want to increase the tier 3 then? You could go 80,000 to 200,000. Anything over 200,000 would be that tier 3.
Why did you pick 200,000?
That's what Kathleen said. I'm just looking here. She
I
was
see.
saying tier 3 would be over 200,000. So they'd get a pretty big wallop there in tier 3, but it would give them an extra 50,000 gallons.
I have no idea how they would feel about this, and I have no idea. I mean, this is an arbitrary number that we're talking about. I have no idea.
Yeah.
You want us to pick one tonight, Jasper? Is that the idea?
We could. I mean, I don't know the exact usage of our commercial users. Off the top
Are
of my head.
let me ask you something. The Nike storage facilities, is that commercial? Is that treated as commercial? Do you know? They have water out there.
No, they're on well.
Yeah, they don't-
Oh, they're on their well. Okay,
They're on
you're
well.
well. You're right. You're right. Okay. So what do we have? We have on Highway 7.
Yeah, the Creekview
The
development.
Creekview
We got
development.
Creekview
And there's so
Circle
few,
and
really.
Buddy Boy. That's all we
Yeah,
have.
and Buddy Boy,
Oh,
yeah.
and RS Collision and
Yeah.
Eddie's Garage. That's all we really have
Wait,
in churches. But they're
Burl Oaks? No.
Is Burl Oaks? No, they're on what? They're not on
No,
city
no.
water. And then we're going to have Mac and Tunes coming on.
That'll be the
back
big
to
one,
the
obviously.
apartment
Yeah.
building.
So
I mean, I guess they wouldn't know any difference. To me, I wouldn't be against equalizing all the amounts or whatever. And yeah, that last jump's going to be pretty big, like we said. But for that third tier, but maybe it's now as good a time as any to do it. And at least even for the schools, it would be just on that amount over 900,000 or whatever for that third quarter. Maybe that's the first step to equalize all the
Yeah. That's what
all
I'm
the
thinking.
rates, and then look at the tiers more in next
Okay.
year.
Do you think it's too stringent?
what would the third tier be? Let's just say for the school, what would the third tier be?
Over 900,000. I think.
No, I mean
the
dollar
dollar
wise.
amount, yeah.
Dollar
Oh, 11. Well, sorry.
So it'd basically be the 7.13 times.
And Brian, you're only charged that top tier on
Yeah,
the
just
gallons over that tier.
Yeah.
You're not charged like
Right.
the
Not
whole
every-
100.
yeah, it's
right.
just on-
I just want to make that clarification.
Yeah.
But what I'm wondering is if the irrigation portion for the school shouldn't be, we shouldn't, you know what I'm saying, giving them notice so that this, because I don't think that they're going to be on their own irrigation this summer.
For this,
You got
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
It'd be 1193 for the top tier,
Okay.
and that would be.
What are the other, can you guys talk about the other two tiers real quick?
at six.
Oh yeah,
At six, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I can.
Because your base changes as well.
So the 0 to 25,000 would be $4.77, and the middle tier would be $6.63, and then the top tier would be $11.93, and then the base rate. Would be $33.89.
What's that? Oh,
So it'd be a pretty significant increase for the school top tier.
Yes.
And when does the school set their budget?
It's same as us, I think.
Same as us.
Yeah, they have.
Calendar year.
No, they're
they're-
July 1st. So they'd be talking about their budget early next year. You know, we're probably
Slightly before Q3 would be
Yeah.
when they adopt their new budget. It'd be
we
like
would have
a
time to plan for it in theory. You know,
be a
maybe
65% increase for that tier 3.
So here's the thing, though. They're not like cities. That's the other thing to consider. They can't just arbitrarily add to their budget. They're more restricted. So I don't know exactly how it all works, but schools are different than cities. Cities can pretty much set our levy and move forward. So what I'm saying is, I'm wondering, again, just for 2023, for that tier 3, that we keep it at that, the 820, but let the school know that in 2024, that tier 3 is going to go up. Would that? So that's, you okay?
So you're saying that the first tier for the commercial in the school would be, well,
The 477.
477,
and the 663.
663, and then the top tier
And
would
the
be
top tier would be that 820 still until 2024
oh,
for the school.
820. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a 14% increase on 2022 rate, right? So
basically that 820 was the proposal, adding 14% to this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This year.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause-
Whatever.
a 6% would be
6% would be
It was 7.92.
762.
Okay.
Jasper. Three Rivers is also commercial. All of Three Rivers.
Oh yeah,
Minnetonka Regional Park and Baylor. Those
Okay.
are the
Nice, there you go.
larger consumers for commercial. Current.
so Minnetonka, yeah, regional park.
But Minnetonka Regional Park doesn't get a lot of water from us. It's only
For their man-made.
For their main pool, they do.
if they need it. I think they had 25,000 gallons this year.
Well, I think it's more than that.
I thought they said they only used 25,000 this
Well,
year.
they couldn't pump out of the lake anymore because they could pump out of the lake to a certain point, but then it got too low, so they had to stop and rely on us.
Right. So they
So
only.
I don't know what we supplement
Right.
them, but we can find that all out. So
I'm not concerned about Three Rivers because they have a lot of users and they have a lot of revenue that can pay for that. It's a little different, but and if they're commercial, that's fine. They only supplement our water for their pond when they need to, if they can't get it from the lake. But
So are we equalizing the commercial to the residential, but leaving the school at the amounts at 6% on top of this year? Was that the consensus, or just the top rate?
I think from what I gathered, if I could summarize, is
thank you.
so for the commercial in the schools, we'd be at, for the 3 tiers, the first tier would be 477, the second would be 663, and the third tier is what we're kind of talking about, would be at 762 for each. So that top tier wouldn't go up as much, but it'd be kind of talk about it and see if that's where we want to be. That's a 6% increase on what it currently is at.
So it's
On
a
the top
6% from 748.
Correct.
So 748 is, I'm sorry,
Or sorry, 719.
719.
719 is current, so we're adding 6% to that for the school for 23
And commercial
and commercial.
for just the top tier. The other ones, tiers 1 and 2, will match the residential tiers 1 and 2.
And so we're saying by the time they get to using the top tier, they will have done their new budget.
They should, yeah. They should have it adopted. July 1st is when it
Okay.
would be adopted. That's
Well, then that's good.
the start of Q3. So that they'd know.
But do we want to keep the commercial usage below? So why wouldn't the commercial usage be the same as the residential usage?
Oh, we could. It'd be like a 65% increase on that
okay.
top. So it's pretty substantial increase on that
Okay.
third tier. We could ease into it a little bit and then maybe gather some more data from Q3 usage in 2023 and bring that back for 2024. It's still an increase,
Yeah.
For tiers 1 and 2, pretty substantial increase.
What is it for tiers 1 and 2? Do you know percentage wise?
Let me just see. So for tier 1, it's a 9% increase. For tier 2, it'd be let's see, 511.
So 9% for tier 1?
Yeah, and tier
Okay.
2 would be 511 to 6. My formula's a little messed up now, but
Okay.
13.
Okay, so 9 and 13, so and then we're saying a 6% increase to their current one. Okay.
To the third tier.
To the third tier. So it won't be quite up to the residential, but we'll work on adding that or moving it up. Okay. All right.
So don't mess with the tiers on commercial and schools. Just adjust the rates as we discussed with
Yeah.
having the first tier match residential, second tier match residential, and then have the third tier be a 6% increase.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right. Then moving on to our personnel policy update review.
I think it's a budget discussion.
I'm sorry, we have park and I'm moving ahead too fast here. Thank you, Todd.
See you guys.
See you in February. Thank you. Park dedication and tree replacement.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, and I'll try to keep this brief because I know we've got Webelos coming, right? So, and I think on the parks, this is just reaffirming. I know the memo's on page 34 there. Basically, Jean Lanier Park is what has sort of been talked about for the last year or two now, and I think in spring the Parks Commission sort of affirmed that that's where we should be allocating our main capital project for in 2023. I know Gary and staff have done some initial cost estimates and even I think a little bit of initial work out in that area as far as what Jean Lanier is looking at being for a capital project. I think it's in the neighborhood of about $390,000 was per the latest most updated estimates. So I think the main crux for tonight is to, I guess, affirm, or if that's what we want to have in our final budget for 2023, is to stay the course with Jean Lanier, or if there's anything else that the council wants to talk about as far as use of park dedication funds in 2023.
That's good.
Yep.
So,
Well, we've
Hopefully mine's like that.
Jean Lanier Park for how many years now?
Not just one question, Brian, or not, just something to think about.
Sure.
I think on a lot of your all your spreadsheets, probably you have the percentage of expenses or revenues. You kind of drop a percentage in there so it can just calculate out. With inflation, whatever, you might be looking at touching some of those spreadsheets that might give a more realistic number as we move forward here.
sure. Yeah. Yep, that's a good.
Yeah.
Good observation. So I can.
And again, this is something, it's not a levy, so this is something that
Right.
could be adjusted during the year if something comes up and we want to do something different or want to do something more. So,
And obviously, looking out to 2028, if things
Right.
stayed the way they are here,
yeah,
the day may come where you're bonding to do park updates.
yeah, right.
Well, there may be, and you saw the parks inventory that's in there, and that the Parks Commission sees every year. And yeah, that's a good point. At some point, if the city wants to be more aggressive as far as getting more park updates or more park amenities, obviously that's a tool cities turn to as a referendum and see if the voters want to do more park improvements quicker, I guess. So.
Okay. So I think that's good.
Yep. And then we'll know more about, I know that the tree fund sheet was included in the packet too, and I think we'll have
There
a better.
is, yeah, but
bet-
there is
oh.
something, we need to increase that. So here's a couple things, because I think you said, I think if I recall, it was $5,000 budget for 2023.
Yeah, and I think that was more just based on a suggestion. I think, we'll, no, I know the tree inventory is happening, this year or is in progress, right, Gary? And so, but yeah, if there's something
Well,
the council wants to
yeah.
add more dollars, we have fund balance available in the fund.
So here's a couple things. We need to have a little more money in the budget from that fund, because we've already talked about possibly replacing some of the trees on Morningside and Morning View and Eastview for that project. We've never done that before, but I think it would be a good idea to have some dollars in there for that.
I think we would build that into the project costs.
Well, do we have to?
We don't have to, but
Because we have all this money sitting there. I would hate to, because if we build it into the project costs, then it's 50% of that is, or some of it is assessed, or not. I guess
think
not,
that's how
because we've already done assessment.
Yeah.
We've already said it's going to be a $10,000 assessment.
yeah, we can if we want to, but if we want to have a cash amount transferred to help pay for that, we can. I mean, we're
Okay.
talking probably, I don't know what we're preliminarily think for, they're out there like right now doing the assessment.
Yeah. I mean, for the morning view stuff, I mean, you're really talking. I mean, what are we talking? We don't even know how many trees are going to be removed yet.
Right, okay.
I mean, I think we're only going to be probably looking at a total of maybe 10 trees that would probably be affected, and out of that, one expense that we'll have this year, I think we are due for another round of triage injection into the ash trees for the
Okay.
border, and that'll probably go up. But other than that, I really don't see any real expenses coming from tree. I mean, we'll be planting some more trees again this next fall in some of the parks. But
Okay. Well, and again, it can be adjusted because it's not a levy amount.
Sure.
So, but
How much do you
then,
want to add to it?
well, I was just going to say make it 10,000. I
They're
mean,
going to do that.
But here's another thing, and I've talked to Jasper about this a little bit. Now, we're not going to do it this year, but I would really like to do something next year, if possible, for like some kind of a holiday event that Minnetrista does. We've never done that. I know. Staff is going, oh, and Gary's going, oh, God, no. All right. I would like to do that because we have so many new residents, and it would be nice to kind of try and get people interested in our city and Minnetrista and kind of a community spirit. And so many communities do this. I mean, Little Loretto and Little Maple Plain, they do it. You know, if they do it, why can't we do something? And I don't know if we want to plant a big, huge tree somewhere here and do it here. I don't know, but I'd like us to think about doing some kind of a holiday event next year and having it be an annual thing. Mound does it, and they call it the West Tonka thing, but you know what? It's a Mound event. It's not a Minnetrista event.
So you brought that up tonight because what?
Because I was thinking about trees. Good question. Because if we wanted to plant a tree or something, then maybe needs to be in the budget.
Well, I'm asking because maybe you need more than 10,000 in the fund, and maybe that's where your head is at.
Right. I was thinking if we planted a big, huge tree, if we had to here, whatever, then maybe we need another 5,000
I think
or
we could
whatever.
do like Gary and like Clark Griswold.
Take one off. That's all I can see.
Cut down a big tree.
All right. So, okay. So let's put 15,000 in the budget
All right.
and kind of have that in the back of our heads
That's
that maybe we'll do an event here. end. So.
If you do an event, you should get that planned very early in the year.
And I'm sure you'll volunteer.
I would be more than happy to actually help coordinate.
Let's hope Gary doesn't quit before.
I would pick a park to do it in myself. There's no room here. I mean, where are you going to put a tree here? Honestly.
Well,
So we'll work on that. Yes. So, but let's just keep that in mind. We don't have to have a big discussion about it tonight, but it's just something I think would be nice to do.
Yeah, we can tap into the park commission and maybe task them with that on their first meeting of the year and at least talk about it and get some preliminary ideas.
All right. So next, do we want to do the personnel committee meeting, personnel policy, or do we want to postpone that?
If I may, I'd throw it on the business items, and then we can talk about it then. I know we have I think I saw the labels.
They're starting to arrive. So, all right. So then that concludes this portion, but we still are in a meeting. Mm-hmm. If we can ask them to come in.
Yeah, I can go ask them.
We won't tell you about that. I'm ready.
Some things you just can't defer.
I go here. Yeah. You could dress up as Scrooge.
Yeah,
I can do that.
Yeah, Don's got good ideas, right?
I can do that. Bah,
I paid money.
I know, so would I. I'll donate just to dress up.
which one of you is going to be the little dog? I can't think of his name.
I'll be Tiny Tim.
That's Paula.
Oh, that's not think of it. That's the Grinch. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's a different one.
So you going to be away this year? Are you going to do a wedding place this year?
Hi.
I
Hi.
have to get
You
my
guys can come sit down.
reservations in quick because she's already got multiple
Yeah.
incident things, people calling or emailing her. She just had to get her for April. So she
Lisa?
has 2 days open.
Can we get a picture of this when we're done?
No, and there's this husband and wife who always go up northern Minnesota for 2 weeks in August. So it's like the last week of July through almost mid-August that she had here.
Oh.
That's why she's told all the people now no more referencing. I mean, if the neighbor comes over and asks, just say, sorry, can't do it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's what they always ask.
That's amazing.
Otherwise, you can slip feed them.
I think she
Yeah, they
doesn't.
don't say it.
She doesn't. I guess I read sometimes that she's kind of getting fed up with it, but I don't think she wants to admit it. And I don't think it's my place yet to call her on it. So
I do. So I have them.
Oh. I never did girl.
Yeah, I just have them in these notes. So
I'll pick up the signals.
yeah, so I just put on tiers for each one.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, and then they do we're not changing the usage tiers or the usage. Yeah, with the breaking points or how we call them.
So I think this will help. This 6% here will be out. Yeah. These are such small users, so maybe it won't.
Just piece of the pie in schools. You know.
Yeah.
All right. So guess what? You guys get to ask us questions. Do you know what questions you're going to ask? Not yet. Think about it, okay? You can ask us questions, and we're going to try and give you the answers.
So we're with Act 285 on Mountain, group of Eagles. So we are a group of fourth graders, and one of our projects is to kind of understand how city planning and city kind of meetings work and operate, and duty to community and all that good stuff. So that's why they're here, kind of observing what's going on. So, some questions, guys.
Well, welcome. Now, I know you're not tall enough to go to the microphone, so you'll just have to speak up. But would you like to ask us questions? All right. What's your name?
Wesley.
Wesley. Okay, Wesley.
What does the city council do?
Well, that's a good question. We sit up here, and so we make decisions, And basically, we decide on how much money the city is going to be spending, where we're going to fix the roads. We make decisions on parks and fixing parks and putting in new buildings that the city needs. Those are the kind of decisions that we make. We also make pass laws. They're called, for cities, they're called ordinances. And so we pass laws too. So kind of like at the state level, but they're smaller. Yeah, what's your name?
Jonah.
Jonah, okay? What's your name between Jonah and Wesley? Augustus. Do you have a question? Really? Okay, well, I tell you what, I have some questions for you. How much do you think we get paid? Okay, Jonah? $400 a day. A day? That's great. Well, yeah, you should. That's really good. Well, that's a good, hey, I'm glad you, what about you, Augustus? What do you think?
Yeah,
400 a day? How many of you think it's 400 a day? You all think that? Wow. It's much less than that. Much less than that.
Much less?
Yes, it's a lot less. Brian, what does it average out to a day if you were to do the 365 divided by, what is it?
Well,
60?
Well, it's
50.
$300. Yeah, I mean, the 400 was close if you make it a month.
A month.
Well, the mayor gets paid $400 a month. The council gets $300 a month.
Like $25 a day.
Yeah.
Less than that. So not a whole lot.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something. Do your den masters, do they get paid? No. They probably don't, do they? No. So why do you think they do it?
Because they volunteer.
Yes. And why do they volunteer?
Because they want to.
That's right. And because they feel like it's a good thing to do, right? So we kind of volunteer too. We don't get paid that much. So we kind of volunteer too. Hi.
This is Samson. I'm David.
Hi. Anton, is it?
Samson.
Samson. Okay. Hi, Samson.
Hi.
So we're asking questions. Okay, what is your name?
So who's the real Sam and who's the real mayor if you're a volunteer?
That's a really good question. Who's the real mayor if we volunteer? Well, I am the real mayor. And, well, yes, we sort of volunteer. We get paid the $400 a month, which isn't much. So we do get paid a little bit. So it's almost a volunteer job.
They're elected.
Yes, thank you. We are elected. Do you know what just happened? Just last week? Do you remember when you're probably driving around or walking around Mound? What happened?
I'm voting for the governor.
Okay. And what other people were you voting for, if you could vote?
The mayor and everyone else.
Right. So, in Mound, you were voting for a mayor, and you were also voting for city council members. And in Minnetrista, the same. And so we are elected. People here decided who was going to be up here making these decisions for their community. So that's a good thing, right? Because then you have a voice. If you were you have to be 18. So you guys are 10, 10, 9, and 9. So it's going to be about 9 or 10 more years before you guys, 9 more years for you and about 8 more years for you guys before you can vote. So you have to be 18 to vote, right? Are you guys going to vote when you're 18? I hope so. Are you going to vote when you're 18?
Samson, are you going to vote?
Wesley.
My dad took me my sister, they brought us here to go vote. He
I
showed us
voted
about
absentee,
it.
so they came with me in here.
Okay.
They got to see how it works and how you color in the boxes and stuff.
Right. Okay, great. What's your name again? Sam.
Do you guys get to do things about like how many animals of this species get killed for hunting?
No, we don't decide that. How many animals get killed when you go hunting?
Oh,
So that would be the Department of Natural Resources, or they call it DNR, and they make that decision because they know all about the animals all over the entire state, and that's at the state level. So we don't determine that or decide that. What we do decide, what we can decide is where you can hunt in our city. So there are certain areas that we created a law. Remember I talked about ordinances? So we created a law that says there's certain areas where you can use a gun, and there's certain areas where you can't hunt at all, and then there's certain areas where you can use a bow and arrow. You go hunting, Sam? No? Okay.
Any hunters in this group? Yeah.
What do you hunt? Deer. Okay. So you've been out. Did you go on opener last weekend? Yeah. Okay. Did you get anything?
No, not last weekend, but this weekend, yes.
Okay. Nice for you. Good. Did you get a buck or a doe? A buck. How big? A 4-pointer. Not too big, but that's a good start. Okay. That's a real good start. Wiley? Wesley.
I like Wiley.
I kind of like the name too, but okay.
It's like the coyote.
So where can you go hunt in the city of Minnetrista?
Well, we'd have to show you a map. If you kind of look at this map up here, you can hunt with a gun, and this is real rough, okay? And that on the far left north part, okay? You can hunt up there, kind of there, okay? And then in the far northeast area, you can hunt with a bow and arrow. Okay, those are more or less, that's kind of what it is. The other areas you can't hunt because there's too many people around. You want to make sure that there's not a lot of people around when you go hunting. Right, Noah? Okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
I told you I would not remember your name.
We should have done names.
She still messes up my name.
I know.
Oh, it doesn't have your name up there.
Yes.
If my son has a bow and arrow and he wants to shoot it in his backyard, is that okay?
I don't know what in certain areas you
I
can.
know the answer. I was just
I don't-
making sure these guys understand.
I don't think you can.
No, you cannot.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, there's certain areas where you can,
Right.
and certain areas where you cannot.
Yeah, so guys, if you have bows and arrows and guns and stuff like that, you can't just go in your backyard. You need to be on a designated area. Like,
There's a really nice range in
Yes.
Carroll Park. though.
Yes.
You can definitely go.
Yes.
do it.
What is our neighbor uses?
Okay, we won't. You won't mention that.
Where's Paul Falls?
Right. So, and I understand you're going to go and do a tour of the police department after this, right? First, you're going to come back and you're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So when we start out our meeting, we always start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm glad you're going to be here and you're going to lead us in that, okay? Who's going to, do you guys have a flag?
We're just gonna.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do you want to carry that in?
No, what we could do, if it's okay with you guys, is they could go behind those chairs there and they'll kind of turn to it, and then obviously you guys will do your normal thing. That's what we did at Orno. That's
Okay. That's
Yeah.
just fine.
That's much bigger than the one we use for scout meetings. So.
Okay. The only question I have is, do we want to bring it down here so that,
If you don't mind, we
Sam
definitely
can-
could do that for Samson.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can move it down here.
We'll move it down there, okay.
Could the scouts like post the colors and stuff like that?
We'll have it pre-posted.
You guys will do that tomorrow night for that AOL. Awesome.
Remember?
Yes,
In different cities, there's gonna be different agencies like trap shooting.
well, that I don't know because we don't have any trap shooting. Well, is the gun range over there?
Oh, the sportsman.
The Sportsman's Club?
Yeah,
I think you
well,
have to be
that's
an
all determined by the schools, not the city.
Yeah.
So the age groups for trap shooting. The Minnetonka gun range does have trap shooting.
Okay, and is there an age that it's a private gun range over here in Minnetrista, and you'd have to check with them to see if they have an age thing.
Oh, that's a good question that my son's group asked when they did this with City of Orono. So the people up here, guys, they may have different opinions on things. They might even have different political affiliations. But what is the diversity of your board? Not the specific little affiliations, but how do you all get along and come to decisions? Like, is there, because you have a staggered number of people, when votes do go through because it's either yay or nay by people? And how do you all get along and are harmonious amongst each other?
So you're correct. We don't have a Democrat or a Republican council. We are called nonpartisan. Okay, that's kind of a big word, but it's called nonpartisan. That means we're not affiliated with any political group. Okay, none of us are. In terms of when we come here. When we come here, we all come. We're all very respectful to each other. We all appreciate everybody's input and what they have to say. And sometimes we say, okay, if you want $500 for this project, but you want $800 for this project, how about if we do $600? Would that be okay? And we come to what's called a consensus. If we can't come to it, that means we kind of meet each other in the middle. Sometimes we can't, and that's okay too. And then we take a vote, and each one of us, there's 5. One person is missing tonight, but we normally have 5 people here, and each one of us gets 1 vote. So how many votes do we need to pass something? We have 5 people. How many votes do we need to pass something? What do you think?
5.
No, okay, that would be good. If we get 5 votes, we pass. What if we have 4 votes? Does it pass? Yes, it does. It still passes.
You need a
Okay,
majority.
we're going to get there. Okay, if we have 3 votes, does it pass?
No.
It does pass because guess what? 3 is more than 2. So if 3 people say yes and 2 people say no, it still passes. If 2 people say yes, 3 people say no, then it doesn't. So you have to have at least 3 people say yes in order for something to pass. Okay?
What can the council do about math education in non-school?
We can talk to the school district about that.
That's a good question.
Sam?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Have we ever talked to the West Tonka Public Schools District?
Oh, yes.
Shirley Dells and stuff?
We talk with Kevin Borg, who is the school superintendent, and he's in charge of all of those schools. And so we have good communication with the superintendent and his staff. That's a good question.
A good question that you may have to kind of oversimplify, but just so they understand, what would the qualifications be, or how does someone go about being on a city council?
You don't need any qualifications.
Other than being a resident.
Yes, right. Thank you.
And there's age too.
You have to be 18.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know if you have to be. No, I don't think you do.
Might be 18.
You have to be a qualified elector, so you have to be able
Yes.
to vote.
Okay, so you'd have to be 18 years of age, and you would have to live in the city that you want to be elected to. Sam?
What if someone's like missing that day, like they're not there for that like meeting, and it's then what would you do?
That's kind of a problem. So there's a law that says if a motion is made, so let's say Councilmember Mortensen makes a motion that says, I'm going to make a motion that we pass a $500 contribution to the Weeblos. And then Councilmember McGregor says, I second that motion. Then we take a vote, and let's say I said no and John said no, and she said yes and she said yes. It's a tie, except the motion would fail. There's a really weird law that says if you make a motion and you can't get the majority, the motion fails. So that's how that would work. Normally we're 5 people, so normally that doesn't happen.
You said
That's correct. Very good. Very good. Hey, you probably go to the West Tonka schools, don't you? Okay. So normally that doesn't happen because normally we have 5 people. Yeah. So, yes.
Do you guys have a diversity of day jobs besides your government roles? Like, are there different, some people that are maybe in engineering or something like that, so you can bring other mindsets to your job here?
Some of us do, and some of us have had in the past. So, Councilman Gregor, you used to?
I used to be in the medical industry.
Okay.
And I moved into, we'll say, equity trading.
And I'm sure the kids know that. I know what that is. So she used to be in the medical field, working for a large corporation, and she's retired now. John, you were an accountant?
Yep.
And he worked for a corporation too. So he, and then Pam?
I was a small business owner, I still am, for a business right here in Minnetrista, and I work with kids mostly on fundraising, and I do gift baskets for corporations.
What's the name of your business?
It's snacks and such.
Oh, there you go.
And I'm retired too, and I had my own business, a small business, and I did interior design. So we have a diversity, and a lot of people have asked me in the past, how does interior design, how do you apply those rules or, to this? But you know what? It's problem solving. We problem solve. That's what we do. That's one of our big things that we do. People come to us, they have things that they want us to fix, and then we have to problem solve. And we also, the other thing that I learned in my business is how can you get people of differing ideas to kind of come together and be on the same playing field. Because, a lot of times I worked with people that one person had this idea and the other person had that idea, and they really were not interested in coming together. But, you figure out how you can come together, and that's part of what we do here too. So do you have den leaders? So let me ask you a few questions. So do you have who's in charge? Who would be considered your mayor? Let's just put it that way.
There's that.
It's kind of
Yeah, so we have the scouts are structured as Cub Scouts, and then tomorrow night, the group one higher than them, they're called AOL, which is Arrow of Light, and then they're going to cross over, and we have a bridge set up where they cross over from being a member of the pack to then moving into the troop, which is the older boys and girls. So there's boys and girls in both now for, I don't know, the last 5 years at least. And then, and that's why they call it BSA Scouts. It's no longer referred to as Boy Scouts.
Okay.
So BSA still stands for Boy Scouts of America, but on everything you'll see nowadays, it's just BSA. When if you sell wreaths door to door, which all these guys did, many people will still say Boy Scouts, but it technically is BSA because we had a
Boy
very strong
Scouts.
girls troop. And actually, as an aside, the girls in this troop actually got Eagle Scout much faster than the boys.
Okay.
They were much more mature. But within the pack, there's one gentleman. He's our pack master. His name is Andrew. He's not here tonight because his daughter and another daughter, they're younger than these boys. So then Nat and I are the co-den leaders of the Bigelows. And then we'll continue on to just half of next year.
Right.
Well, until fall of next year, around this time next year. And then these boys, if they stay with it, which if they wouldn't, it would be a shame. But they will cross over, and then they'll be members of Troop 571.
Okay.
You're one of the leaders too.
I'm an assistant leader.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's correct. And then Nat also works.
So you have leaders and you have assistant leaders then, right?
Exactly.
Good.
Are you going to go to Pack 571 when the Jordan goes there?
Most of them,
Okay. So do you have other questions?
Yeah. What else is on your mind?
So how many of you live in Minnetrista? You live in Minnetrista? You do?
We do, yeah.
Okay. And then the two of you live in Mound?
No, we live in St. Paul.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Sam, you live in St. Bonnie too? All right.
I don't live in Mount.
Oh, you live in Mound. So you have Mound, St. Bonnie, Minnetrista, and Minnetrista. All right. Good. So you're not too far apart. I mean, yeah.
So actually, this is the appropriate council to be at.
Yes.
This demographic.
Right, exactly. We're kind of in between. St. Bonnie's over there and Mound's over there, so that's great.
But as a question, the St. Bonnie doesn't have its own separate stuff, does it?
Yes, they have
does?
they are a separate city, statutory.
So they have their own mayor, their own
They have their
council?
own mayor and their
Oh, I
own
was
council.
unaware.
Yep.
Where's the city hall?
Their city hall is very small, but it's do you know where the park? Okay, there's like it's close to the bike trail.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Yeah, like that way you can get on the bike trail right,
Yep.
right off the highway center.
and then you know where the Mound City Council is, right? That's at the fire station. I think they meet there, and so
Yeah, a week or two ago, they did the first responder course for this, or not course, but it's an elective adventure, and not elective, required adventure, excuse me, and they toured the fire station, learned about CPR, first aid,
Okay.
did all that stuff over in Mount.
okay.
Because Ottenbright, Mr. Ottenbright is a volunteer firefighter there, so
Nice.
he had good access.
He's awesome.
Let me ask you guys something. Do you know what this gentleman over here does? His name is Gary Peters, and he is our director of public works. Do you know what public works does? No. Gary, what do you do? What are some of the
We
things
do
you
everything
do?
in the city. So we go anything from fixing roads to fixing parks to keeping your water running in your sink and your toilets flushing.
Snow plowing?
Yeah.
So they do
Snow
snow
plowing.
plowing. So, yeah.
How
So-
hectic was it this morning, sir?
It was bad.
And then we have this guy over here. He does all of our finances. So do you know what he does?
Finances, what do you think?
Cha-ching.
Yeah,
Money with money.
it is, right? What do you think some of his
He does.
jobs are?
Does he do like the treasurer and stuff?
Yep, he's like the treasurer.
Samson, what do you-
He writes out checks. He writes out checks.
Does he like bills? Like decide where stuff goes?
Yes.
Send bills. Everyone loves getting bills,
Yeah.
right? Yep.
You have to send bills to yourself.
I don't live in Minnetrista, otherwise, but I get bills. I live in the city of Mayor, so I get
No,
their
he
bills.
doesn't send bills to himself. But what he does do is he does get the bills and he has to look them over and then he has to write out the check and send the bills out. So do you know what this guy does? Well, he's our administrator.
Who keeps clean and safe?
But this is City Administrator Jasper. I apologize, your last name.
Krugel.
Yeah,
Krugel, yeah.
Krugel.
Yep.
City Administrator Krugel, but his first name is Jasper.
So what do you do, Jasper?
I take what the city council wants to do, and I work with the staff members, all the directors, to make sure everything gets done. So I just facilitate the general vision of the city council and make sure it happens.
So in other words, we're the bosses. All 5 of us here, we're the bosses of all of these people, and they have to do what we say. All right, with that, we like to believe that that's what happens. And then this is our chief of police. And so he keeps he and our police officers patrol our cities, and they keep our cities safe. So we do have to take a break real quick. One more question.
Is he the one that's going to be taking us on the tour?
Not him, one of his staff.
I have a police officer that will meet you next door when we're done here. You can just meet him at the front door and he'll give you a tour of the whole place.
So with that, we're going to take about an 8-minute break, and then we're going to come back and do the Pledge of Allegiance, okay? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Say that again.
Thank you, Pam. Pam. And is there a second? I think it was John. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.